Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with a Anthem news update. The open demo is now available to everybody for Anthem, so I suggest you download it, give it a rip, and let me know what you think about the game, whether it's through social media or in the comments down below. Now we're going to be talking about the endgame for Anthem, which is really important to folks who are going to be investing in this product. What's going to keep us coming back for months and months on end, and a great write-up by Variety.com, who I will have linked in the description down below, looks to address that very question. There was a press event held that people got a lot of hands-on time with the end game content for Anthem. So without further ado, let's get into this and talk about what is waiting for us once the main story is complete. Contracts, repeatable missions evolve once you reach higher levels. When you get into the later game, there is something called legendary contracts, says executive producer Mark Dara. These are essentially the same gameplay concept, but the difficulty is ramped up. Unlike Destiny, which has you pick up patrol beacons while out in the world, contracts in their legendary forms are discrete missions. You'll load one up, follow your Cypher's guidance, as well as the waypoints that direct you to the next major event in the chain, and then you'll be booted out to Fort Tarsis, the launch base social hub, or directly to the Forge for customization and loadout tweaks when done. The meat of the end game comes in the form of Strongholds. These are long group activities for up to 4 players. They aren't exactly comparable to Destiny raids though. They are partway in between a raid and a strike, Dara explains. They're not quite as long as a Destiny raid. Destiny raids ask quite a lot from you. So actually, as I go on to explain this Stronghold and the difference between that and a Destiny raid, do keep in mind that actually in the Anthem demo, there is a Stronghold you can do. I played it. It was personally my favorite part of the entire demo. It featured a very large, I think it was called a Swarm Queen boss at the end. It was really high action. It was fun. It was a little bit difficult and it required a lot of my attention. So I really suggest that if you do download this demo, even for a short time, hop right into the Stronghold because it seems to be the very strong part of this game, pardon the pun. Dara believes that Anthem differs from Destiny's appointment style gameplay, which is a barrier for some players. He says there's flexibility for players with time on their hands waiting for friends to come online. You can also matchmake into everything Anthem has to offer, including Strongholds, whereas Destiny's raids still don't allow that due to the intense level of communication required. If I have an hour to kill, there's a lot of things I can do, Dara says. I can walk around Fort Tarsis and talk to people, I can go into free play, I can matchmake into any of the activities. When my friends come online, we can build up that party until all 4 of us are on and then do the experience we wanted to. We're still having a cohesive experience when everyone shows up. For those who are longtime Destiny players or maybe put their hours in and then drop the product and are looking for something to replace that, what seems to be different between the raids and the Strongholds is primarily what communication is demanded. When I played the Stronghold mission, there were a lot of enemies. It required at least decent skill and usage of your abilities, but nothing out of this world. Whereas, cited in this article, we see that Destiny requires a much higher level of communication, and also you can't simply matchmake it. Whereas the Stronghold stuff, I did matchmake my way into it. I played Anthem entirely solo, technically, when it comes to actually having a squad. I was just matchmaking my whole way through the entire experience, and it wasn't bad by any means. There was no frustration from playing with randoms. I know that's something that you can eventually encounter if someone's maybe not that great at the game. But anyway, on to what Anthem Strongholds are. 2 Strongholds available at a recent preview event were about 45 minutes long. Unlike Destiny raids, there are no puzzles. These 2 are closer to Destiny strikes. The focus is on set-piece combat culminating into a multi-phase boss fight. One sends players into a Scar Temple to take on an enormous boss, Skelos, let's hope I pronounced that right. Much of this Stronghold is interior, with tight corridors that lead to large open rooms filled with scaffoldings and sniper perches. Turrets complicate navigation and combat, but this is where level 30 javelins shine as special abilities tend to take them down quickly. Part of what makes these longer missions more enjoyable is how Anthem's gear contributes to a growing sense of power. There is a palpable difference between the options and incentives players have throughout the game. At level 10, where the Anthem demo places players, it's prudent to equip the highest power gear. In fact, you might not have access to any items that confer additional benefits. At the level 30 cap, there's a greater need for synergistic loadouts. This is a common feature in games like this, sure, but Anthem does a better job than most making players feel powerful from the start and continues to ramp that up through the end game. That's one aspect of this game that has me very excited as someone who played the demo in its VIP state and I really enjoyed how good the gameplay felt, albeit it borrowed a bit from Mass Effect Andromeda. I still thought it played exceptionally well, and I felt powerful while in that javelin. The question was, would my abilities and the way I played and the guns I used and any secrets I unlocked, would that feel samey by the end game? And it seems like folks who have been playing around at the end game feel like it's a much more powerful experience there, which I think is great because it plays into that power fantasy that Anthem is really trying to deliver in many ways. Despite a distinct and palpable progression, BioWare has been careful not to gate content based on gear power. This ensures that lower level players aren't separated from their friends, even if they start playing Anthem much later. Players can group up with anyone regardless of pilot level or gear power. Anthem tries to find the sweet spot that gives all players in a party a satisfying experience. It will balance on an individual level, Dara explains. If I'm level 30 in all masterwork gear and you're level 4 and have no masterwork gear, we're both getting an experience that feels challenging to us because we're balancing within that experience. That's not to say that the level 30 person isn't going to have more choices, but the balance should feel correct. If you guys need another game for the sake of comparison to fully understand what Mark is talking about here, consider Elder Scrolls Online's One Tamriel update, where as you explore the world, it doesn't matter who's in your group, what level they are, that you are facing the enemies, it will scale properly to what point you are at in the game, which means that naturally the AI isn't going to do anything different based off the difficulty you play on from what I've read, but rather that the AI is going to scale its damage higher and probably have higher health pools, which is something that I really need to test out and put my hands on to fully form an opinion on, because currently in that state I can't stand when, as the difficulty rises or as the game scales, enemies become more spongy, and in turn, instead of the game offering me different options to take them down that require more skill because of my level, they choose to just take the what I call the easy way out. We unlock one stronghold during the main story, Dara says. The other strongholds don't unlock until you get to the end game and finish the main story. Now, it's interesting that this is in the article because they were talking about earlier how they don't really gate off the player from certain strongholds, but put it this way, that if you want to play what seems to be the main piece of endgame content, which is running these 3 strongholds over and over again, you and your friends have to beat the game. Now, I'm not sure how long Anthem is, but still, that's something worth considering, where at least you can matchmake into a stronghold mission, which is not going to bar you off from looting and shooting, and based off the scaling that was also mentioned, it doesn't seem like it'll disrupt the team play when all of your friends get online. Cataclysms will function similarly to seasonal content found in games like Fortnite with a global change to the map, or what DICE is doing with Battlefield 5's Tides of War. These will be time-limited thematic content that gives BioWare the chance to change how the world looks, feels, and reacts to players. Cataclysm events will only last for a limited period of time, and the core experience tied to them will also fit somewhere on the spectrum between Destiny Raid and Strikes. Furthermore, what I want us to move toward is more of a conversation with the people playing the game, Dara says. Our DLC has always been story-driven in the past, which is great, but it's always been really infrequent and really big, partially because it's been really infrequent, so it had to be really big. What that means is that it's not a conversation, it's more like, here's the thing, we hope you like it, here's the thing, we hope you like it, here's the thing, we hope you like it. Too bad if you don't. We can't do anything about it. When you can get more of that more often, then we're able to react, evolve, and change. The people playing the game can influence what the game becomes over time. That's going to be true not just for Anthem, but for our games going forward in a way they haven't been able to in the past. I don't know what this indicates for games like Dragon Age 4, for example, also the rumored KOTOR that has been attempted multiple times at BioWare. I get a little worried that they want to take a games as a service approach to everything in their future pretty much, but I appreciate the willingness to open up a dialogue with the player. This seems exactly like what we've heard from games in its genre before. For example, we'll say Fallout 76. Before the game launched, we were talking about endgame content, future content, and Bethesda was constantly going, well, we want to see what the players enjoy, we want to talk with them, we want to exchange with them and decide from there where we go with the title. So, for example, with Anthem, provided that the launch is smooth, imagine that people are raving about the Strongholds, probably the first piece of content content that BioWare will do is a really big Stronghold. It just really depends on what players want more of. I'm very curious to see how quickly and responsive they are with this product, because it seemed like with the demo and with a lot of the PR with this game, BioWare was emphasizing we can have a quick turnaround with this game. We can instantly flip a part of the product out to the player that they've been giving us feedback on for around a week. So that's what I really want to see with this game, because I think that's always nowadays with such a immediacy factor, being in need and always needing that instant gratification that a lot of gamers adore, that pretty much you need to always be updating the game and always be talking about what's next. And some folks get frustrated that we're talking about the Endgame and downloadable content before the titles actually launch, but nowadays games try not to end. They try to create themselves as a platform to constantly build on top of. Personally, as time has gone on, I've gradually started to look more forward to Anthem. It seems like BioWare is making a good game. What's really getting in the way is whether or not EA will let them launch a good game. An example of that is the most recent chart that released for BioWare's Anthem, and I mean, oh my god, this thing is just ridiculous to me, because if your game's launch has so many different tiers and points of access that you need a chart explaining it, then you really need to go back to the drawing board and realize why you're so out of touch in certain ways, because that's just stuff that people don't want nowadays. People want one day, one release, not, oh, spend X amount of extra dollars, get it a couple days early. It's like, no, just give us the game, let us pay $60. If there's a deluxe edition or a collector's edition, fine, that's pretty standard for those who are really, really excited for the game, or if the series means a lot to them, I get that stuff. But these tiers of access, that's the type of stuff that can plague a launch. Fortunately, since the game doesn't seem to split up its player base based upon their level, where things will gradually scale based on the group you're with and what level you are, it doesn't matter if you get, for example, a week of early access versus someone who picks up the game 3 months after the fact. The game's gonna scale itself. So it seems like they have a good framework in place, but words are great. We'll see what happens when we actually get our hands on the game even more. You can get your hands on it now by playing the demo, but I'm also talking about the final product, because a lot of people, especially at BioWare, have been really emphasizing, oh, this is not in the final product, and this is changing the final product, and this, that. I get that's great, but it's one of those things where actions speak louder than words at the end of the day. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments down below. Fire away, ladies and gentlemen. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that, as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.